There was no scream, no crash, no final message drifting across the night. Only the quiet rhythm of waves below the gap, a place known for its beauty and feared for its silence. On August 5th, 2013, 20-year-old Renee Marsden walked toward the cliffs of Watson's Bay. A girl who loved her family, who planned her future, who believed she was finally breaking free from the relationship that had consumed nearly every corner of her life. But she didn't know the truth. She didn't know the person she trusted most did not exist. And she didn't know that the final message she received, the one that pushed her toward despair, was written by the same person who created the entire fantasy. This is the digital betrayal that rewrote a family forever, and it begins long before Renee ever reached the gap, because the person Renee loved was a ghost with a real face. To understand the tragedy, you need to know Renee, not the headlines, but the heartbeat behind them. Born in Sydney, raised in a close, warm family, Renee was the kind of daughter who checked in, helped out, and laughed with her whole body. At 20, she was studying, working part-time, and planning the steps of adulthood with the same enthusiasm she carried as a child. Friends described her as gentle, dependable, quick to smile, someone who loved music, loved her sisters, and loved the small rituals of everyday life. She was careful, she was thoughtful, and she was not naive. Her family remembers a young woman steady in her decisions, loyal in her relationships, and committed to supporting the people she cared about. She had dreams, career, independence, the possibility of a future with someone who loved her back. She was excited for what came next. But like many young people stepping into adulthood, she was also searching for connection, searching for someone who understood her intensity, her fears, her hopes. And that desire, that longing for closeness, became the doorway someone else walked through, someone she thought she could trust. Years earlier, Renee had grown close to a girl named Camilla. They were friends, ordinary, casual, familiar. But the real story began when Camilla claimed to introduce Renee to someone else. Braden, a correctional officer, handsome, mature, caring. According to Camilla, he was everything Renee might want, except he wasn't real, not even a little. Braden existed only through messages, texts, long conversations, constant emotional contact. His life story was elaborate: work, family, a difficult past, a strict job that limited phone calls but allowed texting. He knew what to say and when to say it. He reassured her, scolded her, complimented her, demanded constant emotional loyalty. The relationship grew intense quickly. He pulled her away from friends. He dictated when she could talk. He cycled between affection and punishment, patterns experts later recognized as coercive control. But here's the truth investigators eventually uncovered. Every message from Braden was written by Camilla, a real friend hiding behind a fictional lover. To Renee, Braden felt stable, supportive, protective, someone who understood her in ways others didn't. She trusted him. She explained things to him she didn't share with anyone else. Her family didn't know the full extent. Her friends didn't know the depth. And Renee herself didn't know she was falling into a relationship with a person who wasn't there at all. And by the time control turned into danger, she was already emotionally trapped. By 2013, Renee's relationship with Braden had consumed nearly every corner of her world. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, creeping. Daily messages, rules disguised as affection, emotional pressure disguised as devotion. He isolated her slowly, If she didn't respond fast enough, he would turn cold. If she talked to someone he disapproved of, he punished her with silence. If she questioned inconsistencies in his story, he blamed her for distrusting him. And behind every word was Camilla, the real woman who saw Renee nearly every day, the one who smiled in photos, texted casually, attended events with her, the one who encouraged the relationship, even when it harmed her. In late July, Renee finally began questioning things. She wanted to meet Braden, to hear his voice, to see the man she'd loved for years. But every attempt to meet was derailed by sudden excuses. New prison rules, work emergencies, phone confiscations, family tragedies. Renee didn't know those lies were hastily crafted in real time by someone sitting just a few kilometers away. Then came the breaking point. On August 5th, 2013, Braden abruptly ended the relationship. Not with empathy, not with closure, but with a long series of demanding, punishing messages, blaming Renee for his emotional pain, accusing her of disloyalty, and insisting she had ruined everything. For someone emotionally entangled, someone manipulated for years, the impact was devastating. At home, Renee cried quietly. She told her family she was stepping out for a drive. She needed air, space, time to think. Nothing appeared unusual. No one sensed she was entering a dangerous headspace built on lies. She drove her small car toward Watson's Bay, toward the Gap, a place known for its breathtaking coastal cliffs, a place known for its tragedies. CCTV captured her car heading into the area at around 6:30 p.m. She parked. She walked to the edge. And the final messages she received that evening, the messages that pushed her to despair, were all typed by Camilla. Every sentence, every insult, every fabricated threat, every emotional blow, written by someone she trusted. And when Renee disappeared into the darkness, the person who caused it pretended to mourn her. The timeline that night became the central focus of investigators, not because Renee vanished without a trace, but because the digital shadows she left behind contradicted everything her supposed partner ever claimed. 6:27 p.m. Renee arrives at the Gap. 6:29 p.m. She sends her final messages to Braden. 6:31 p.m. Braden replies coldly, emotionally slicing through her already fragile state. 6:33 p.m. Phone activity stops. A short time later, witnesses report seeing a lone figure near the cliffs. But what investigators found afterward is what rewrote the entire story. Renee's car remained parked where she left it. Her handbag was inside, her license, her keys. No signs of struggle, no evidence of third-party involvement at the cliffs. The immediate assumption was simple: a young woman overwhelmed by a breakup. Except this wasn't a breakup, and it wasn't a normal relationship, and the person she thought she was speaking to never existed. When detectives examined her phone, the chat logs, the text history, and the relationships surrounding her, a pattern emerged, one that no one could ignore. Almost every message from Braden traced back to Camilla's device. Every planned meeting canceled at the last second, sent from Camilla. Every threat, guilt trip, emotional manipulation. Camilla, the breakup that destroyed Renee hours before she died? Camilla again. She had run two identities at once, the loyal friend and the strict, controlling boyfriend, switching seamlessly between roles to trap Renee emotionally. Investigators discovered deleted accounts, vanished profiles, and messages scrubbed minutes after Renee died. The timing was impossible to ignore. The digital evidence didn't just point toward manipulation, it screamed it. But without a crime scene, without a body, without conclusive physical evidence, police faced a question that would haunt the entire investigation. If the relationship was fake, if the control was coercive, if the emotional destruction was deliberate, then what happened at the Gap that night? And why did the person behind the deception immediately begin covering their tracks? When Renee didn't come home that night, her mother became worried almost immediately. It wasn't like her to vanish. It wasn't like her not to answer her phone. By morning, panic had settled in the walls of the Marsden household. Calls went unanswered. Texts remained unread. The first major clue came early. Renee's car, parked neatly near the Gap. No chaos, no sign of violence, just a silent vehicle beneath a gray morning sky. Police found her phone shattered on the rocks below, carried up by search teams. There was no sign of her body. The ocean had taken everything except the truth buried in her messages. Detectives noticed something almost instantly. Renee's final texts were emotional, confused, desperate, begging for clarity from someone she believed she loved. The tone was heartbreaking, but there was something else, a detachment, a cruelty in the responses she received. They seemed too controlled, too cold, too rehearsed. So investigators did what investigators do. They followed the digital trail, phone records were subpoenaed, account logs were analyzed, deleted messages were reconstructed, IP addresses were traced, call histories were matched, and then the patterns emerged, unmistakable, undeniable, and chilling in their precision. Every message from Braden led back to Camilla. Not occasionally, not coincidentally, not sporadically, every single one for years. When Camilla was with Renee in person, Braden sent playful messages. When Camilla argued with Renee in real life, Braden suddenly became supportive. When Camilla wanted more control, Braden became possessive. There was no correctional officer, no prison, no relationship outside the one Camilla artificially constructed. Investigators watched as two identities, friend and lover, intertwined into one. It wasn't a simple lie. It was a system, a strategy, an emotional cage, and the deeper detectives looked, the darker the truth became. Because Renee wasn't the first person Camilla lied to, just the one who didn't survive it. Police brought Camilla in for questioning, not aggressively, not accusingly, calmly, the way detectives speak when they already know more than they reveal. Camilla denied everything. She denied creating Braden, denied controlling the messages, denied manipulating Renee, denied the digital overlap investigators had already mapped, denied that she used multiple SIM cards, denied that she deleted accounts after Renee's death, but the evidence was relentless. The chat log showed Braden's vocabulary matched Camilla's texting style. The timestamps matched her movements. The IP logs reflected her devices. The phone pings placed her in the exact locations where Braden claimed to be messaging. At one point, investigators traced a message from Braden that was sent while webcam footage showed Camilla sitting at home typing on her laptop. The synchronization was perfect and damning. Digital forensics peeled back the layers one by one. They recovered deleted contact profiles, deactivated messaging accounts, fake email addresses, fabricated stories, and long periods where Camilla messaged herself as two different people. The more they dug, the more grotesque the deception became. This wasn't a brief lapse in judgment. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was coercive control through a fictional lover. A manipulation that lasted nearly 2 years. A psychological trap meticulously maintained by someone Renee trusted. And as investigators uncovered each new detail, one question grew louder. Did Camilla know how unstable those final messages would make Renee? And if she did, Why did she choose that moment to break the persona she had built? The coronial inquest years later would reveal the dark mechanics behind Camilla's double life. She created Braden to maintain emotional control over Renee. She sabotaged Renee's attempts to form real relationships. She manufactured drama when Renee pulled away. She orchestrated arguments between herself and Braden for leverage. She used guilt as a leash. She used affection as a reward. She controlled when Braden appeared and disappeared. And on the day Renee died, detectives discovered something chilling. Camilla deleted digital evidence within hours of Renee's final messages. That timing was impossible to ignore. Not days later, not after hearing news, but almost immediately after Renee walked away from her car at the Gap. Investigators believed Renee reached a breaking point. The final message Braden sent, authored by Camilla, blamed Renee for everything. Said she ruined the relationship, said she caused pain, said she destroyed trust. Words crafted specifically to wound, words designed to cut deep, words that struck at Renee's most vulnerable emotional points. But here's the cruelest part. After Renee died, Camilla continued pretending. She comforted the family, acted shocked, played the grieving friend, even spoke about Braden as if he were real. For detectives, this behavior was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Her lies didn't stop when Renee stopped messaging. They only grew more elaborate. But legally, the path forward was unclear. There was no physical crime scene, no confrontation, no physical assault, no weapon, no body recovered, only manipulation. Deep, psychological, invasive. But manipulation the law did not yet recognize as criminal. And so, the investigation hit its most painful wall. The truth was overwhelming. But the justice system wasn't built to prosecute it. What happened next would change the legal landscape in Australia, but not in time to hold Camilla accountable. The investigation into Renee's death became one of the most complex digital examinations in modern Australian policing. Every forensic path led back to Camilla. Every reconstructed message confirmed the deception, the emotional coercion, the manipulation, the cruelty behind the final texts Renee ever read. Yet when the question of criminal charges surfaced, investigators faced a legal void. In 2013, New South Wales had no laws addressing coercive control, no laws recognizing digital relationships as potential weapons, no laws punishing emotional abuse that occurs behind screens. Camilla hadn't physically harmed Renee. She wasn't present at the Gap. She didn't threaten her with violence. She didn't leave evidence of physical force. And the crime that pushed Renee to the edge wasn't recognized as a crime at all. So when the coronial inquest opened years later, the courtroom wasn't about prosecution, it was about truth. In 2020, Assistant State Coroner Elaine Truscott delivered the findings. She spoke plainly, she spoke firmly, and for the first time, she articulated the full horror of what happened. Camilla had created a fictional character to manipulate Renee for years. She had operated two identities simultaneously, friend and lover. She provided Renee emotional support while secretly tearing her down. She controlled Renee's decisions, her relationships, her emotional stability. And she ended the fictional relationship in a way designed to inflict maximum emotional distress. But despite these findings, despite the lies, despite the psychological destruction, despite deleting digital evidence within hours of Renee's final messages, no charges were laid. The coroner admitted the system had failed Renee, not because investigators made mistakes, but because the law had not evolved fast enough to protect victims of digital abuse. It was a verdict that offered truth, but no accountability, a verdict that shattered the Marsden family in a different way. They received an explanation, but not justice. And so their fight shifted from seeking punishment to demanding change. In the years following Renee's death, her family refused to let the story end where the law stopped. They transformed grief into purpose, standing at the front lines of a movement demanding recognition for the invisible wounds of coercive control. They met with legislators, they spoke to reporters, they worked with advocacy groups, they demanded the law reflect the world modern victims live in, a world where abuse doesn't always show up as bruises or broken bones. Renee's case became a catalyst for national conversations. Her name entered parliamentary debates about reform. Her story was used in training materials for police, psychologists, and domestic violence responders. The tragedy of her manipulation became an example cited in discussions around digital abuse reform. Australia began moving toward recognizing coercive control as a criminal offense, not just in physical relationships, but in digital ones too. Her death exposed the blind spots of the justice system. Her story illuminated the dangers of unchecked online identities. Her legacy helped shape laws designed to protect others from falling into the same psychological traps. But for those who loved her, legacy is not measured in legislation. It's measured in memory. Renee was more than a victim, more than a case file, more than the tragic ending the internet attached to her name. She was a daughter who laughed loudly, a sister who loved deeply, a friend who cared intensely, a young woman on the edge of adulthood, robbed of the chance to fulfill the life she was building. Her family continues to honor her through awareness, advocacy, and unwavering truth. They carry her story not as a weight, but as a light, a reminder that deception can be deadly and silence can be broken. The digital world promises connection, but it can hide predators in familiar faces. Renee's life reminds us to look closer, to question deeper, and to protect those who might not recognize manipulation until it's too late. Her story matters because it shows the cost of unseen harm and the power of those who refuse to let that harm be forgotten. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.